Hi, I'm Reverend Patricia Adams Farmer, and the title of my sermon today is Bears, Laments, and Wild Outbursts of Gratitude. It's based on Psalm 113 and Psalm 100. This past week, I dreamed that the pandemic was over. We all emerged from our homes like bears waking up and opening their eyes to the sun after a long season of hibernation. And like bears, we were hungry. We were hungry for new adventures and bear hugs, and we danced together in joy. And then I woke up. I woke up to the voice in my head that said, "Sorry, it was just a dream." And then I watched the morning news to see the grim statistics. COVID cases surging. The hospitalizations, the death toll, now over 250,000 people here in the U.S. In fact, this fall the virus has spiraled out of control. And although there is hope on the horizon for a good vaccine, several in fact, scientists tell us there will be much suffering between now and then, especially as people gather for the holidays. And so, on this Sunday of Thanksgiving, I find myself teetering between Thanksgiving and lament. And that's not a bad place to be. Both are real, both are important, and both are part of God's beckoning call for us in this world of pandemic. Today, I lament this health crisis, the deaths, the suffering, the economic toll on our country. I lament the interminably long lines of cars at food banks, and for those who can't pay their rent, for businesses on the brink of bankruptcy. I lament for children who are losing their parents, for parents losing their children, and for the doctors, nurses, and technicians in our hospitals who are vulnerable, exhausted, and emotionally drained from seeing too many people die alone. But in all the suffering, I know that we are not alone in our lamenting. God laments too. God's heart breaks over this world of suffering and death. God feels it all, suffers with us, and seeks to transform our sufferings with fresh possibilities for wholeness and healing. Which brings me to Thanksgiving. Just as I find myself lamenting these days, I also find myself offering wild outbursts of gratitude. That's because in the midst of death, life is just so precious. And every little thing, too. I am thankful for a home, for a full freezer and a full pantry that keep me and my husband well fed. For steaming mugs of tea, for 2 silly cats who keep me entertained, for music, for friendly faces on Zoom. Most of all, I am thankful for the way I feel God's presence with me in these trying times, and thankful for those who choose to work with God to bring about healing, both physical and spiritual, and for those peacemakers in the world, for those who promote justice for the common good, for all those who till the soil and those who feed the hungry. There are so many good people in the world. It makes me want to sing with the 100th Psalm, "Enter his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise." Give thanks to him and bless his name. And so I am convinced that the pandemic actually requires that we engage in both lament and thanksgiving during this holiday season. Lamentations actually create a dark backdrop on which the goodness of life stands out and shines brighter than ever before. Yes, the swing between lamenting and thanksgiving can be exhausting, but if we choose to only focus on one, we will miss the fullness of God. Our Christian faith consists of a tension between Good Friday and Easter Sunday. We are embraced by a God who knows disappointment and suffering, who understands, and is now working out redemption. a God who creatively transforms what is into what can be. When I read the Psalms, I see the psalmists being honest with what they are experiencing and with what they are lamenting. And yet, they always return to thanksgiving and praise. Psalm 13, for example, after rehearsing the sorrows and despair, how long must I wrestle with my thoughts day after day? But he ends his song with, but I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing the Lord's praise, for he has been good to me. What would it look like for us to sit with God in both lamentation and thanksgiving? I encourage you to try a spiritual practice that allows you to be present with God in both of these places. First, lamentation. How do we sit and hold our brokenness, the world's brokenness, with God? Here are a few suggested spiritual practices. First, find a psalm of lament and memorize it, such as the one for today, Psalm 13. Let the psalm help give voice to your lamentations, to your prayers. Second, who do you know that could use an I see you and I care about you card, or phone call, or text message as they sit in places of lament? Reach out to them and work to empathize with them, acknowledging their pain rather than glibly trying to cheer them up. Third, take care of yourself and your own sadness. Examine your life. Notice any unhealthy coping mechanisms, and then invite God into that place. Take time to express or even write down your sorrows, as well as your gratitude. Now, how can we incorporate the practice of thanksgiving into our daily routine? Well, first, as you wash your hands, something we do so often these days, think of 5 things to thank God for, corresponding to your 5 fingers. Then work up to think about 10 things for which you are thankful. Big and small, all blessings count. Second, maybe now is a good time to start that gratitude journal. Write in it daily for a few minutes. Third, go for a walk, wearing a mask and socially distancing, of course, and notice the ever-changing beauty of God's good creation. Seasons change, and the pandemic, too, will pass. And one day, just like the bears coming out after hibernation, we too will emerge. And if we engage in these spiritual practices, unlike the bears who emerge much skinnier, we will find ourselves to have become fatter spiritually. We can use this time to fatten our souls with prayers of lament and prayers of thanksgiving. Thanks be to God. Amen.